forecasts that have come out from the IMF overnight. But we'll break it up into two because there are two different pictures here. First of all, it seemed pretty glowing for Australia, all things considered at the moment.
It's an interesting word, glowing. I mean, it is in the fact that we've been upgraded. We've gone from having a possibility of a forecast contraction of 6.1% for this year to 4.9% contraction. So still a big contraction. That's quite a recession when you think about it in terms of what they're talking about. But it is better. They certainly allude to the fact that our ability to have suppressed the disease as fast as we have. Also, the fact that if you look at what they're talking about, our overall sort of economic impact has not been as dramatic as they expected due to the fact that our lockdowns haven't been as hard as what they were forecasting. It's the same with what we were hearing from the RBA. It's the same with what we're hearing from the government. Things are not only at their best case scenario, they're actually better than their best case scenario.
Well, it's come down from 7 to 5%, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So it's a, you know, as I listen to Philip Lowe here, you can see it. He's trying to sort of contain it, but he is significantly happier than what he was on on March 19th when he came out and did an unprecedented movement by the RBA, something that's never been actually seen in its history. And that is where we're at. But as he said, there's two parts to this story. And if you have a look at what the IMF also said last night, they have actually downgraded everything else. And the outlook for the global economy is now for a contraction of over 6%. But I think you really need to look at places like Europe. They've now downgraded places like France, Spain, Italy to contract by over 12%, Germany by over 8%, the UK by just under 10%. They are big numbers for what, you know, France, Germany, the UK and Italy are in the G7. These are ginormous economies that are going to severely, severely contract.
And is this perhaps why, you know, we had those huge gains on the share markets, you know, that actually got to levels that hadn't been seen since before coronavirus. Well, you know, what's the last 6-7 days in a row now been very soft going backwards? Is that the correction that is caused by this second wave that's taking place?
It is. The interesting thing about equities is that the equity markets, which is what we always talk about here, have actually sort of looked through it. What hadn't been looking through it and what had been making a lot of people, including myself, sit up is that if you had a look at things like foreign exchange, and if you had a look at things like bond markets, they were getting very worried. So about 8 to 10 days ago, FX started to show signs that it was getting really worried. So you actually started to see money flowing out of things like the Australian dollar, out of the euro, out of the pound, out of also places like the Norwegian krone, also the Swedish krona. All of these sort of what we refer to as risk currencies were all being sold off quite quickly and being put back into the US dollar. And with that, that money that was going out was going straight into US bond markets, and the yields in US 10-year, which are seen globally as the safest place on the planet in terms of an investment, was being bid up quite strongly for about the last 8 to 9 days. Equity markets hadn't done anything about that and were not really taking into consideration, particularly when stories out of places like Arizona, Florida, and also Texas were getting back into levels of 2.5, maybe even as high as 3 times. That's the kind of stuff that gets people really, really worried. Equities weren't doing that. So last night may have been the start of that, and that's what everybody's alluded to, is that second wave is actually now becoming not only a problem, it's actually now here, and how governments particularly handle this scenario. Do we go down into harder lockdowns again? Do we go to localised lockdowns? Market's unsure, and that's why it's been very interesting to see that equities have been very, very late to this idea that the second wave, not only is it here, but now what they're going to do about it.